All right, hello everyone. We're getting ready to kick off week 8 with this video. I missed you all for the week 7 video. I was swamped with a National Science Foundation grant that I successfully got in on Wednesday. Thank you for your patience. So instead I did a couple short videos, maybe one ended up on Slack and then met with you all in office hours when there were particular problems. Nevertheless, week 8, we're kicking off with our standard intro video describing how things are going. Week 7, as you all are finishing up, is very technical, focused a lot on the plumbing associated with our web application, making sure that you could run your application either locally or on Heroku. And by plumbing, I mean that process by which you write code on your local computer, you check it into Git, you push your code to GitHub, and then Heroku and Git communicate to understand that there's been a change in your code. Heroku then restarts your application with whatever code has been placed in GitHub. So that's plumbing. It's not particularly fun. It's kind of the logistics of running web applications. But once you get that in place, it's a lot easier to do development and to do it quickly, especially if you can prototype on your local machine so that you don't have to have things uploaded and then pause while it redeploys on Heroku. If you can just run on your local machine, it's just a much faster development cycle, which is, who doesn't want to spend less time doing work, right? So when you are doing your work on your local computer, remember there are 2 places that you want to look for debug errors. The first place to look is in the window where you're running server.js itself, where you type node server.js. In that window, below the command, while the server is running, if there are any errors in your application that are on the server side, they're going to show up there, provided that you've put them in your code to indicate that there is an error. The other place, the second place to look for errors, is in the browser itself after opening the inspect tool, looking in the console. That's where errors in your client-side code, main.js is the predominant location of client-side code, that's where you'll see any errors coming from the client side. So terminal has server-side errors, console in the browser has client-side errors. What do you do if you have a bug or something along those lines? Well, the first thing to do is to try and find out where it is. Those 2 locations will often list a file and a line number that you can go to kind of look to see where the error is. Now you might have to look a little above and a little below because sometimes the error is actually being caused by something that was broken in the line above and the compiler thinks the error is in the next line. So look around there. And the thing that I've been working with most people on in office hours has been detailed bugs. A missing quote, a dot where there should have been a comma where there should have been a dot, that kind of thing. The sort of bread and butter of detail-oriented programming. Now, if you want to, you're welcome to use ChatGPT to help you debug your code. I don't really want you using ChatGPT to do your essay work. That sort of defeats the purpose of the assignment. But for the code, it's completely reasonable once you have your skeleton in place, if it's not working, to copy and paste a coherent chunk of that code into ChatGPT and ask it if it can find any syntax errors for you. Now, I haven't found that ChatGPT is very effective at writing entire programs for me, notwithstanding the kind of videos and hype on YouTube that I've seen about this. But what I found it very useful for is helping to correct small chunks of code along the way. So you're welcome to do that. I don't consider that cheating. I consider that part of the debugging process. Week 8 then, what we're going into is also very technical, although now we're going to be doing some more, I feel like, sort of more substantial coding work, not the plumbing. The main thing that we're going to be learning this week in terms of concepts is about jQuery. jQuery is an extension to JavaScript. The origins of jQuery go back to the first era of programming in JavaScript in web browsers, when we had this problem that different web browsers, Firefox, Chrome, Safari, running on your desktop, running on your iPad, running on your phone, all these different platforms had subtly different ways in which JavaScript would be executed, which posed a problem because when you write JavaScript, you don't know where it's going to be run. And so for a long time, programmers for web applications had to write these elaborate hacks to make sure that the JavaScript would run correctly regardless of what browser was being used. Sometimes you will see echoes of this when you're using maybe like a government website where it says it only supports one or two browsers, maybe Chrome, these two versions, and Internet Explorer, these two versions. That's largely because there's something going on in the JavaScript that doesn't work uniformly across all different platforms. And they've agreed that they're only going to support two, for example. So one of the reasons jQuery was invented was to standardize the way that JavaScript worked across multiple browsers. When you work with jQuery, one of the things that jQuery does is it makes sure that regardless of what browser you're working on, the result of the function or the code that you're running, if it's provided by jQuery, is consistent across all browsers. This reduced so many headaches for web application programmers that by itself made jQuery very popular and very effective. As jQuery became more effective, not only was it used to standardize the response across different browsers, but it also added new functionality to that wasn't available in JavaScript. Things like animations that were available, but that were difficult to create consistently across platforms. So like an animation, for example, where a panel opens or closes or fades in or fades out. That's a nice thing that jQuery enables. Okay, so for us to learn that, we're going to do three things this week associated with learning jQuery. The first one is to follow a video that I made introducing jQuery, and I apologize up front. It's a very long video, so watch it in chunks. It's like 53 minutes long. It was necessary to give you a lot of examples of how it works, though, so that you could kind of get your head around the processing of what happens. The core thing that's interesting about JavaScript, well, there are a lot of things that are interesting about jQuery, but one thing that it uses that we've already learned is the CSS selection language. So in CSS, we would use a certain string in order to pick elements of the DOM out, perhaps to make it a certain font, or perhaps to give it a background color, or to put a border around it. We would use some sort of query that was like a class query, or P, or A, the different kinds of queries we use to select elements of the DOM to apply a style to it. What jQuery does is it uses that same language, but instead of applying a style to it, it applies interactivity to it. So maybe it animates it, or it allows a button to be clicked, or it makes it disappear or come in or change. That kind of interactivity uses the same language as the CSS selector queries, but uses it for a different purpose. So we're going to learn that in the first part of jQuery, which is the video. The second part of the jQuery learning that we're going to do is going to Code Academy. Now, I've picked out some specific parts of the jQuery lesson that I'd like you to do. In most cases, it's like the lesson and then the quiz, but it's not the whole jQuery assignment. So look carefully at the parts that I'm asking you to complete. I chose the things that I felt were most applicable to helping you understand what was going on in the reverse-I application that we're walking through. Now, of course, you can do the whole jQuery assignment if you'd like to get the certification from Code Academy, but sorry about the bell. The third thing we're doing about learning jQuery this week is I'm going to send you to the jQuery website itself and give you an opportunity to poke around and learn a little bit. One of the bits of feedback that I've gotten is that some of you are frustrated that you don't know where to go to learn more about these sort of fundamental, languages apart from Code Academy. So I'm going to send you to the jQuery website so you can kind of get a sense of like, hey, where is all of jQuery just laid out if I need to know it? And so this is an opportunity to do that. A lot of times reading this documentation will teach you a lot about the different aspects of a language that you didn't even think to ask, but it's like browsing through a library in a local community library and finding a book you weren't expecting to find. It's kind of the same thing when you browse documentation. You find functionality you weren't expecting to find. That's what we're going to learn, jQuery. Then we're going to apply it by adding some interactivity to our website. The interactivity that we're going to add is the ability to click a button to invite someone else that's in the lobby to play a game with you. So the general flow, the idea is that after you enter your name and you go to the lobby page, which is work that you did in week 7, what you'll see now is you'll see all the people that are in the lobby currently, and next to them will be a button that you can click on to invite them to play a game. I've broken up this week's lobby interaction into 2 chunks to try and give you a little chance to breathe and to catch up because there's a lot of coding going on, a lot of learning happening. A little bit of feedback was that you need to slow down just a little bit to give you a chance to breathe. So we're going to do that in 2 chunks. This week's chunk is just add interactivity to the button. And then next week, we're going to have the ability to accept an invitation and start playing the game. So 4 videos for the coding, 1 intro, and then 3 code-along videos, and then 1 coding assignment to turn in. One thing about the estimates, I know a lot of you have had various success with the estimates of time that these things take. Some people are going faster, some people are going slower. I'm just acknowledging that these are estimates. We did our best job to guess what the average person in the class is going to spend on these things, and that's how we tune our class to UC system-wide standards about how much time you should be spending in the class. There's some standards that we use, and that's kind of how we audit whether or not a class is worth the number of credits that you're getting. But then we provide that to you as a kind of an estimate of what we think it's supposed to take. And then you can think about, well, when I give you an estimate, does it usually run 50% longer or 25% less? And you can help adjust our estimates to your particular your mileage may vary. All right, remember that our goals here in this class are not to teach you to be a software engineer, but you're going to be working with software engineers. And so you need to understand how the plumbing works, what the plumbing is, how the attention to detail makes so much difference. I want you to understand what is a big ask of a software engineer and what is a small ask of a software engineer, so that you kind of understand what's going on. You'll be embedded with teams that usually include a program manager, probably 3 or 4 software engineers, and you, if you're doing our standard expectation of being a UI or UX designer, you may be moving between multiple different teams, sort of sharing your time between multiple teams. Very standard kind of arrangement that, for example, Microsoft has in their development teams, at least last time I talked to them. It's important to know what you're asking them to do, important that you have the language. And then the other thing, of course, is as a designer, you need to know the material that you're working with, code, the plumbing, the internet, the protocols are all part of the materials that you're designing for, in addition, of course, to the people as well. All right, so I think that is let me check my notes real quick. Oh, the last thing I want to point out, I should have said this earlier, but what we're doing when we do the jQuery and we do the invite button is we are taking the text messages that you were sending in week 7, human to human, and we're changing it so that the browser sends messages browser to browser, using the same mechanism as the text was going between 2 different browsers. But the human that's playing the game or on the website will never see the messages that the browsers are sending back and forth to each other. The browsers are just sending those messages so that the interactivity can be coordinated between the different browsers. For example, the invite button being changed into accept invite. All right, don't want to get too long-winded. Welcome to week 8. Shout out to our TAs who are doing a tremendous job grading, keeping the course up to date. I feel like we maybe are as up to date as we've ever been at this point in the course. Enjoyed working with many of you in office hours. Reach out if you have any other concerns. Welcome to week 8. Only 2 more weeks to go. Can you believe it? All right. See you soon. Bye.